and it's been great. I haven't met all of you, but it's really been fun having this be my first time. It's been exciting, so I really enjoy listening to all of your stories. And what we're going to talk about, as Steve was mentioning, is programmatic advertising and engagement, which is something you don't normally put together, especially with programmatic, but it's something that we really need to start doing. And even if you listen to everyone talking in the last couple of days, it's all about connecting and engaging, but especially with programmatic, it's definitely a challenge. And we need to think of it that way more so, because it's not about just the performance anymore. It's also about how we're working with our users. And really, as publishers, that's where you get your leg up, in terms of competing against the Googles and the Facebooks. You're never going to be able to compete with them reach-wise. So what differentiates you is that you know your audience, and that's what we need to talk about. So first, let me have these guys here next to me introduce themselves and just tell us a little bit about yourself, as well as what sum up your programmatic strategy overall.
Excellent. So
Mike?
I'll lead off. Hey friends, my name is Mike Brooks. I'm the SVP of Revenue at WeatherBug. I manage direct sales, programmatic sales, partnerships, BD, anything business or revenue that comes into the business are things that I work on. WeatherBug is about 14 million monthly active users, 11 of which are in-app. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today are things that we face specifically as an app-heavy publisher, and I think some of the things where we're maybe a little bit further behind than some of my friends up here, maybe a little further ahead as well. So our programmatic strategy is actually it's pretty aggressive, and we'll start off a little bit hot. So number one, from a programmatic strategy, we have an aggressive infatuation with unified auctions in mobile app. So a lot of the folks here, 2015, 2016, were a part of the transition to header bidding on the desktop side, and that was fantastic. People saw that lift of 20-25% revenue, CPMs, et cetera. Mobile app was much later to the game. So when it came out in 2018, it was something that we put a lot of time and effort to invest in and focus on. So for that, we've seen those same kind of gains in mobile app, where I think there hasn't been as much adoption. So for us, that focus has been huge. The other thing is, we don't use Google for anything. So we don't use them for ad serving, we don't use EB, we don't use AdX, and we are probably different than a lot of folks up here. So with that, it means we got to get real creative on a lot of things, but it also means we have a lot of other options that other folks don't. So I can talk more about that later, but that's kind of, we're a little bit wild in the programmatic side, but we are seeing incredible growth, CPMs, users, everything. So programmatic and general times at WeatherBug are good, so it's working.
Who's your largest partner?
Programmatic partner?
Programmatic partner, since, for us, Google is 55% of our desktop spend. So who's your largest programmatic partner?
Is that Google, or people coming through EB?
That is both. Yeah.
So I would say where you have a Google, you probably have an Amazon too. I have an Amazon. So for us, we are big partners of TAM, and that's Amazon's header, and they're able to use their first-party retargeting in the same way that Google's able to do a lot of the stuff that comes off of YouTube, et cetera. So we are a very broad publisher. We have 15 million users that their activity looks kind of similar. So that is, Amazon eats that up for retargeting stuff. So that's kind of what fills that for us.
Hi, and I'm Jeff Lustig. I work at News Corp. At News Corp, I do a couple of different things. So I work as the manager of programmatic operations for News IQ, which is News Corp's initiative for programmatic advertising across all of our business units. It's the only way to buy programmatically utilizing first-party data across our various properties, Wall Street Journal, Realtor.com, New York Post, just to name a few. And then I also act as our product manager for our pre-bid wrapper. And so we've deployed News Corp's own proprietary wrapper that's built off of pre-bid. We're one of the few publisher members of prebid.org. And we have implemented that across all of our O&O properties. Currently looking to do the same thing for mobile applications. In terms of strategy for programmatic. It really varies across each of our properties. Our properties are all very, very different. But I think really the initiative that I work on, News IQ, has really been one of the main drivers in kind of bringing everything together, utilizing first-party data, contextual targeting, and just as a news business, that's really where we're focused.
Can we talk for a second about proprietary wrapper? Because that scares the shit out of me. So I have an engineering team who wants to build everything, an ad server, SSP, everything. How were you able to manage building that in-house? Or how has that process been?
I think scary is good in the sense that we have we do have access to a lot of talent, and we had a lot of support for the project just from a corporate standpoint. We were on AppNexus, and we were able to work with a really, really great engineer from Realtor who we brought on board, who just really understood advertising and was able to convert a lot of those tools. And then we're really thinking about doing the same thing right now with mobile applications as well.
You hold on to that person forever.
Yeah, I'm not even going to tell you his name.
I've never seen him work.
So,
He's not on LinkedIn anymore.
yeah,
I
He's
think
been
you guys
removed.
are
He's
totally
under-
showing how what's great
he's
about
under
all
lock
of you,
and
you're
key.
so distinct as far as publishers. You have such different categories, such different, and even you with mostly app.
Oh,
You
yeah.
guys can learn from each other. They have the larger users, and you can
We
get
started this
for
like 15
first-party
minutes
data.
ago over in
Yep.
the corner. So
So
that's
I think
I
this is really great.
haven't even introduced myself, and and hopefully the conversation
I don't even
continues.
have to
I don't even have to. No, but did you guys just take pre-bid given the AppNexus element? Did you just take pre-bid and make a version of it for your own?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's really what we've done, and now that we're off on our own, we can really take it and start to experiment, do A/B testing, find and tweak it the way we want to.
Okay, now we can go to Chris.
Oh yeah. No.
Now you can introduce
25
yourself.
minutes later. Hi, everybody. Chris Moore from Publishers Clearinghouse. We are the largest publisher you likely never heard of, or you've heard of, but not because of our digital presence. You've heard of us because we're presenting big checks somewhere in Arkansas or anywhere else, or it doesn't have to be Arkansas, not to call them out. So we've been around for 65 years. Our digital media presence has been revamped and reinvigorated for the last 5 years since we acquired mobile DSP, a number of different iterations, and we've grown to 2.5 billion monthly impressions. 500 million of those are video, which is our bread and butter, especially in the PMP world. We are highly programmatic. 93% of our business is programmatic and open market, trying to transition that to PMP currently, just because of the one-to-one relationships it creates, and it's also just a more diversified strategy.
You say 500 million impressions on video?
Yeah.
So we're gonna.
That's pre-roll. That's 100% viewable because it's in between gameplay. We are gaming and entertainment at our core. We acquired Topics, which is a publisher based in Palo Alto, beginning of August. So we're continuing to diversify and add to the Publishers Clearinghouse family.
Because we started video less than a year ago, and we have like 5 million views, and they sell out in half a second. 500 million is a little bit harder, so we haven't had to delve into the programmatic video ecosystem so far. How has that been? Like with all of that scale?
Yeah, I mean it's generally great. We, in Q4 now we'll be in the 70% fill rate at low teens CPM wise.
Wow.
So it's very good for us because it's such a unique. Number one, every user is logged in and registered, so we know everything about them, and our users are incentivized to keep their information updated because they want us to show up with the big check at their house during our super prize times, which we just did that a couple days ago. So the video views are easy, and the completion rates are great, and our buyers love it. But we do have to create those one-to-one relationships with the P&Gs, with anybody who wants to reach a soccer mom in their mid-40s in the Midwest, that's our bread and butter.
Well, that's part of, especially Mike and Chris, you seem to be all about programmatic, and it's been very successful for you. But creatively, how have you been able to, has that been a problem for you? Have you been able to be more creative with it, and in terms of just customizing your spots or anything like that?
I would say, I'll start because we're more basic. I would say we have that same constant pull of margin versus scale, of programmatic versus direct, and we've had to make the same decisions as a lot of folks in this room is, what do you allow into the programmatic ecosystem, right? Because you will get a very angry direct team when you say everything that's available is now available programmatically. You need a reason for them to exist. So historically, we haven't done that much. I would say things that we've seen nice changes in recently is desktop is not as much a priority for us, but we've started working with partners like Just Premium and Sublime who can help provide programmatic high impact units. That's been nice for us. The main unit that we use from a brand wrap perspective isn't available programmatically, so they tend to work together. But I would say we just started dipping our toe and allowing things outside of banners and the very little extra video we have to be available. So from a unit perspective, we're just starting to get into skins, and in mobile, I think it's still up in the air.
Well, I know, Jeff, you had talked about you were very successful with your custom units, but your problem is then trying to get the advertisers. You don't have that data. So what are you doing to get past that?
Yeah, I mean, so we really try to take our focus on our first-party data, and so like Chris, we have some of our sites, we have logged-in users, like Wall Street Journal, Realtor, and things like that. Makes sense to be logged into our sites. So we utilize that information and then target across all of the different BUs. And I think in terms of kind of bringing it back to the creative, for us, it's really about what makes sense to be available programmatically, what doesn't. So kind of to give an example.
Can you give a specific example, like what would be good for you?
Yeah, that's what I'm about to do. So to give a kind of no, that's fine. So to give a specific example, we built native units in for programmatic, and we leverage those only through News IQ. So that we can vet all of the opportunities and serve them, and our trading team can figure out what specific units, for instance, are available. So to kind of provide even more examples, when I say native, we have specific spots that are built in that really look and take on the feel of content. But they're branded, and so an example would be on like the New York Post, and on the homepage there's a spot that can open up for native, but only when it's sponsored content that links back to our own site, and it's vetted by our publishing team. The spot's obviously very highly coveted, but we open that up for programmatic specifically through News IQ because we control that.
How are you guys monetizing your data?
In what sense?
Any? any external sense, right? We had the data conversation yesterday with the roundtable and with the panel, but how are you guys monetizing? Because I mean, you guys are huge. Just curious if there's any external use cases for that, for your first-party data.
I mean, so we try to. It's a good question, and I probably don't have a great answer for it. But I think in terms of the way that we look to it is we look at it as a high value add, and so kind of to add an example, we can target specific types of audiences because of the type of data that we're getting. So an example would be we get a lot of campaigns for targeting home buyers and things like that, and we have that information because of our survey data that's across our sites. So we know a lot more about people than you would typically expect. So when people are filling out a mortgage calculator, right, they're giving you information as to how much money they make, a lot of stuff that you normally would never.
Right,
never
so, but
would.
you guys aren't selling that to LiveRamp or something like
No,
that.
no.
No free ads in this room, but yeah.
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope.
Well, that's a good question in terms of, I mean, when you are creating these high custom units, and how do you, sell it to your buyer? How do you, sort of make, I mean, obviously, you're doing what you need to be doing, you're distinguishing yourselves of who you are, and you're showing them what you do. But on the other hand, they like metrics, they like data. Do you have any of that, or how are you getting past that if you don't?
No, we definitely do, and so we share the results of those types of campaigns and RAP reports, and we're able to effectively measure against that, and we do that in a whole host of different ways.
Okay. What about Chris? Do you have any issues in terms of trying to get to that next level? I know you have the soccer mom, but you want to get that.
Yeah, so that's part of the Topics acquisition, right? So
Yeah.
we acquired this business, which is very different from ours, where no user is logged in and registered. It's an arbitrage game of going out and finding new 12 million new users a month and monetizing the Jesus out of them. So I could have used a lot worse words, but that's all I came up with. So it's different. It's a very different business than our users who are coming back every single day for 11 minutes a day and continue to play games, to accrue tokens, to enter more sweepstakes. So we don't necessarily have a problem monetizing our own users. Our biggest issue is bringing in new users to monetize them differently, and also people usually age into the Publishers Clearinghouse experience as opposed to coming in new. Like, I would never be a user of our site for a number of reasons, but aside from the fact that I want to make our experience better, so that's why I admittedly am not a personal fan of it, but it's a behemoth, a powerhouse, so that's why.
Well, are you able to do anything to bring in that new user? And as you said, that seems to be one of your challenges when we spoke earlier.
Yeah, that's the seesaw and the battle that we face internally. We are small. We're 40 people out of 600 within the organization that monetize through ads. So we need to acquire users in a different way, but we don't own that part of the relationship and part of the company. So that's one of the biggest struggles that we have here.
How big of a deal is advertising within PCH? Is it everything? Is it half the thing?
This is that's catnip. So we sell $1 billion a year in commerce. That's the biggest thing people don't know about Publishers Clearinghouse. So what most people in this room would go buy on Amazon on an everyday basis, our users buy that through us. We handle procurement, we handle shipping, everything involved. That's the main top line revenue driver. So advertising, so that's $1 billion, but as you can imagine, very thin margins. Because we pay USPS $30 million a year and only going up to ship this stuff to our users. But our advertising business is, let's say, it's going to be $88 million this year, top line, but very high margin. So, I mean, we're going to be 65-70% of the bottom line for the company in a small cost center.
Well, Mike, and you, first of all, congratulations. You won the Ad Exchanger for Best Technology, and
thank you very much. Thank you.
For a publisher.
Yes.
But you're very different from these guys. You're, as you said, you're mostly mobile, so you have a whole different set of challenges. What is it? And I know we mentioned once about you don't really have that first-party data, which coming up in January that may be an issue because of the new privacy laws. How are you handling this? What are you doing to sort of prepare?
So privacy for us right now is an incredibly defensive state for us to be in. So not so much offensive, how can we use it to make money in a future world without cookies? Because again, we abide by a world of completely device IDs. So the cookie going away isn't as big of a deal to us. The device ID will be once eventually that goes away, but we face slightly different challenges. I think we're at a point where, we have to lock our shit down for privacy purposes If you follow the news, the Weather Channel was sued by the city of LA last year. AccuWeather had some issues with Reveal Mobile. And in general, the weather category is always under fire from a privacy perspective. So when we look at that, it's not so much what's the function of the cookieless world. It's we have a ton of location data on our users. And where is that going? And who is using that, and what are the controls in place for that to go place to place? So when we think of privacy at WeatherBug, it's much more defensive on behalf of our users than it is. We're not as worried about a cookieless world just yet. We don't have the same logins that these folks do, so we are a step behind, but we have a bigger privacy wave coming, which is the consumers come at weather first. So that's kind of our bastion right now.
And Jeff, so for you, obviously you have a huge, lots of data on people at this point, first party data. Is that even a blip now that this is going to be happening to you? Are you guys nervous about it?
I mean, of course it is. But that being said, I think that we definitely are preparing for it. And I think the crux of that for us is going to be on contextual targeting, and that's really where we're focusing a lot of resources in building tools and internal ways to move beyond third-party segments, because we know that advertisers will come to us and we'll be able to utilize all of the content that we have and move it into contextual and figure out how that really moves the needle for us.
You should sell that when the time comes.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, but for anybody, especially us, it's any of these challenges or like a privacy challenge is actually an opportunity for a first-party data owner with logged in and registered users. So I see it as a differentiation factor for any sort of demand or anywhere out there.
No, and well, I mean, then it gets into obviously also, which I know has been a concern for all of you, with fraud. And are you going to any partners in terms of, for third-party data verifiers? Any one of you can answer that for me, as I'm sure you all are, or
yeah.
want to.
I mean, so I'll sort of start with that. So I mean, so we have very little true fraud at News Corp. Our sites are. We don't really utilize traffic drivers or buy traffic or anything like that. The things there's that being said, of course we're running the ad fraud solution. So we run IAS across our sites. They've been a great partner for us. And that being said, the kind of fraud that really worries us more than anything is site spoofing. We're obviously very protective of that, and that I think. As a premium publisher is the thing that really keeps up at night, and like the things like a meth bot or something like that. That's what we really worry about.
Do you? I mean, obviously do you think you can only get away forever with only working with IS? And do you guys see demand challenges at times where a brand comes in like, you need to be working with our provider, which may be a different one?
Yeah, I mean, so that happens, quite frequently. They're like, well, can you run, X, Y, and Z tags or whatnot? And we'll of course we'll throw them up for them. But yeah, I mean, it's cost prohibitive at the end of the day. At certain points, you can't run 5, 6, however many partners there are now, and it's really just about having the guts to kind of push back and be able to explain what it is that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that we face is often our users look like bots because they are so active and they're playing so many games, and they're like, well, Moat's coming to us and they're like, this has got to be a bot. I'm like, it's not a bot, because we are very sensitive to that, and we know our users are this active, and they're slightly crazy when it comes to wanting to win a sweepstakes. And I get it. I want $1 million as much as anybody else.
I know we need to open it up to everyone, but it's sort of, all of you guys have been talking about it, and everyone's touched upon it. I mean, Catherine talked about it earlier when she was saying how we sort of have to lean in. I thought she put it really well, lean into what we do best, or as a publisher. And even yesterday at the roundtable, one of the biggest topics was everyone knew you had to have engagement. You had to please your user, and that's really what you guys know. That's what gives you the edge. But then you have that devil side, the one that wants to place the ads, and
That's all of us.
as John from Chive was saying, that's sort of the long-term goal is not using the ads, but it's easy to give in and do the ads, and you have to find that balance quickly. How are you guys doing that? Are you able to do that?
We're doing a lot more integrated sponsorship and partnership when it comes to that. So we're having brands come to us and say, how can we own a section and create utility for your users that will help with data information that we have, like the brand has, that they can add to WeatherBug to then produce something for everybody who uses it. That way, if there's an incredible utility, and it's easy for us because we're a utility app, we get a lot of people coming back, and that incentivizes them to build a good product with us because they get all the upside that we do too.
Yeah, what I mentioned earlier around trying to create more direct relationships or PMP relationships, if or when we're able to do that more extensively, we'll be able to create more scarcity in our ad experience, because right now we have our display viewability is probably 55%, but if we get that to 70%, our CPMs will go up 25%.
I think for us, it's really about complementing our experience with really good ads. And so it's about, bringing in, for instance, more native things like that really, take on the look and feel, and they fit in with our experience, and then that the experience is custom, and people will say, targeted ads makes me uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, wouldn't you rather see something that you actually want to buy or care about versus something that you don't?
As long as it's helpful and as you said, goes to your audience.
Well, and there's a value exchange too, right? Like, no one really wants to pay, no offense to the Wall Street Journal, but no one really wants to pay to read something, but yeah, great. So okay, fine, you don't have to pay for it, but you have to watch these ads.
Yeah, and we've trained people not to, and that's our bed right now.
I mean, I still will have people on my team that come to me and say, "Oh, why can't I see that?" It's like, you have to turn off your ad blocker. We pay for your salary.
We have time for some questions for the panel.
This question is for Mike. I'm Chris at Cheddar. I do revenue operations.
Hey, Chris?
So you don't run DFP.
Correct.
And you don't run AdX.
Correct.
Is that because you have a high sell-through rate to counter the lack of fill, or are you feeling pretty good without that setup?
So we're feeling exceptionally well, and here I will dive down into why we don't use Google.
Yes, please.
So when you use Google, which I have a feeling a few people in here do, you're given a menu of partners, right? So in mobile app particular, that's where we make our decisions off of. We did a 10-month ad server / header RFP that concluded in May with not a whole lot of learnings. What we have seen is we bet that Ed Arundale, who runs Programmatic for us, with a full list of menus and of partners in that menu, can outperform our competition who has to stay on Google. So the challenges we have a lot more operational challenges of, oh, they're not integrated with our ad server, or, oh, you can't do email with this, et cetera. But in exchange, I get to work with a lot more people than the people in this room. So I have a lot more partners that I have access to that aren't integrated into EB or the historical Google stack. And by working with those partnerships with less operational help from Google, we've been able to way outperform what we would have with those existing partners through EB. So we're still maybe 20-25% direct sold at most. But someone who can focus and work with partners who are not integrated into EB has shown a ton more growth as to us eating off the same menu as everyone else.
What do you guys think will be your biggest revenue win or change for next year?
For us, it's latency, right? So especially in the weather world, I know I have an AccuWeather friend here too. We all suffer from a very high latency, especially in mobile app. So when I joined the business 18 months ago, there was an average 9-second latency between the time someone started the app and they saw their first ad. That is so much money left on the ground. We have cut that way, way down, and we literally just did a project which was how much is every second worth, and it's $3 million for us. So it's $3 million for every second that we can shave off of latency. And we're doing the same shit. It's the same technical setup, but we had an all hands yesterday. We got the engineers super excited. They're all about finding some seconds right now, and I support it.
I have one last question. Jeff, since you mentioned ad blockers, how has that evolved? How has the problem of ad blockers evolved with your audiences in terms of how much of your audience do you know is blocking you, and how have you managed that?
I don't know if I have percentages off the top of my head because I didn't really think about it, but it's definitely a concern for us, and it's something that we're really looking into as to how to recapture that audience. I think for us it's we have different ways to combat that, and the subscriptions that we run is probably the still much more money than ads in that perspective.
We're at about 20%, we estimate, with the help of outside vendors. We estimate 20% of our users have ad blockers. The real interesting part of the business for AdBlock Plus is that you can join the acceptable ads program, and then they can serve ads for you, or you can bring in your own demand. So it's a bit of a conflicted approach.
I think it's been called extortion before.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a number. We've alluded to a number of extortion operations up here. So
we're gonna extend this in our roundtable on the topic.